Hello everyone, I'm Tom Skiba, the Chief Executive Officer of Community Associations Institute in the United States. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk to you today. I wish we could be doing this event in person instead of virtually, but obviously the pandemic has conspired to have us all communicating electronically today and for the foreseeable future. We're talking today about the challenges that managers and communities have in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. And we're certainly seeing this across the United States. As many of you already know, we have about 370,000 community associations here in the U.S. About 75 million Americans live in a community of some kind. That may be a vertical community, a condominium, it may be a horizontal community of single-family homes, or in many cases some kind of hybrid. And the communities in the U.S. vary in size from very small, 3 or 4 units, up to very, very large, as many as 25,000 homes in a single community. So the challenges faced by managers and by obviously the boards that govern the communities can be very varied. What we've been advising our members is to focus in a tiered approach to addressing the challenges facing their association. The first thing to deal with are life safety systems, things that affect the overall safety of every resident, every visitor, everyone who comes through your building. Is the fire suppression system working? Are the fire alarms working? Are critical heat and light and power and other systems available? Obviously, those are things that must be dealt with immediately if there's any kind of issue. Next, we get to the essential systems, the essential things that you have to provide. Cleaning, which was always something important, has obviously gone up in importance in the face of coronavirus. So what cleaning is being done, both in public spaces and what is expected of your residents in private spaces? How are you handling spaces that get high traffic areas, for example, like your lifts in the building? And then the third tier are things that are non-essential. And this is where, in the U.S., most associations are taking a very hard look at, I guess, what I would consider non-essential services for 2 reasons. One of which is, do the rules and the laws and the edicts from our government allow us to be doing those things? And secondly, are those opportunities to save against the budget? So, for example, in the U.S., in almost every association has closed their public spaces and their amenities. Many communities have a pool. The pool's been closed. But that doesn't mean you can not maintain the pool, because otherwise you're going to incur long-term costs. So you still have to have the pool water checked, you still have to do you run your filter, you still have to put your chemicals in, because you can't let it turn into a stinking green mess in your community. So where's the margin? And I think a lot of associations are looking at all these things and saying, okay, are there ways we can save? Are there ways we can find an opportunity to put money aside, take it out of the budget now because we know we're going to need it for other things, that extra cleaning, for example. The other thing that we've been running into is communities need to think about how other big projects or big issues like insurance are affected by coronavirus. For example, if you have lifts in your building and the lifts are covered under your insurance may require an annual inspection. Can you get the elevator inspector or the lift inspector to come out and do that inspection? Are they considered an essential employee in your industry and in your country? So really, one of the biggest challenges that we've faced in the U.S., unlike other countries that I've been speaking to, is that we don't have one set of answers for all these questions. Who's an essential employee? What are essential activities? What are the limits on the size of groups you can have gathering together? What are the legal ramifications of not having an annual general meeting? In most places around the world, there are only a handful of sets of rules and laws that drive the answers to those questions. In the United States, every state in the U.S., all 50 states and all 5 territories, have their own laws governing how associations are constructed and how they're managed and governed, and they have their own rules regarding how to deal with coronavirus. So because we have not had a national stay-at-home order, we've not had a national statement on what's essential and non-essential, it's been left to the governors of every state to determine what is appropriate in their state. So for example, in New York State and New York City, if you've been seeing the news, they're one of our worst hotspots for COVID-19. There's been a total lockdown for more than a month in New York. In other places around the country, for example in Texas, there's a partial lockdown. So you're encouraged to stay at home, you're encouraged to have not allow groups of more than 10 people together, but church services are exempted from that. So you see on a week and a half ago on Easter Sunday, we had thousands of people in large churches all over Texas. So, which kind of defeats the purpose of the stay-at-home order in the first place. So every state has a different set of rules. Why is this a challenge? Because in many parts of the United States, a management company or a manager may actually do work in multiple states. So where I live outside Washington, D.C., a typical manager will have clients in Virginia and in Maryland and in the District of Columbia. 3 separate legal jurisdictions, 3 different sets of laws governing condominium and communities, and 3 different sets of executive orders from governors or mayors governing what you can and cannot do. We have spent an enormous amount of time, unsurprisingly, trying to collect that information, update it on a daily basis, and get it out to our managers and to the boards of our communities so they know what the rules are, what the standing orders are, what the expectations of government are. And what is essential, considered an essential activity in Virginia, 10 miles away in Maryland may not be considered essential, and therefore you're not allowed to perform it. So for us, it's been a real challenge to make sure that we understand what's essential to the community and what our boards and what our managers are allowed to do. Lots of other challenges, of course. There's pressure now, as we seem to have flattened the curve here in the U.S., to, well, things are better, so we should open the pool and open the fitness center and open the community centers, and let's start having meetings again, and let's start all doing these things. We have found a lot of residents who feel like they have been confined as long as they can tolerate and want to go back to whatever is normal. I don't think they understand the epidemiology here, but more importantly, it's not a cultural expectation in the U.S. And so managing that culture for a manager or for a board is very, very challenging. We expect individual owners to press back against their board and against their manager on the simplest of things. What color are we going to paint the lobby of the building? This is a much more complex thing than that. This is something that affects their day-to-day lives. So clearly we're getting pushback. What we've discovered is the only way to combat that, the only way to deal with it long term, is with transparency and an excess of communications. If people know what's going on, why it's going on, what the impact on their life is going to be, what the impact on their home is going to be, the more they know, the less likely they are to make up answers in their own heads of some nefarious situation that the manager has imposed. We want people to understand how serious this is. This is literally life and death for people. In the U.S. today, 45,000 Americans are dead because of this pandemic, and that number's only going up every single day. We have to remind ourselves of that and remind ourselves that this is not, oh, I really wanted to go spend some time out at the pool, or I miss having my workout on the treadmill in the fitness center. Those are inconveniences. Death is not an inconvenience, it's forever. And it's important to communicate that to our residents, that you're doing these things to protect them. And I think if they understand the severity of the situation, if they understand the actions that a board or the manager is taking, they will understand that it's being done in their best interest. It doesn't mean they're going to like it, but ultimately they will at least respect the decision-making process. There's lots of other things we could talk about. We can talk about maintenance. We can talk about reserve, sinking funds and reserves. The reality is that I think for most managers in the U.S., for most boards in the U.S., the coronavirus has made all of those other issues that you typically deal with at a board meeting, that you typically talk about in your community, are now second-tier concerns. What are the things we have to do to protect the people in our buildings? What are the things we have to do to make sure the building, when this is over, has not suffered any major losses, either in people or in structure, that we've protected the asset value of the community for everyone's investment just as assiduously as we've protected the health and well-being of every single resident and every single person who passes through our community. That's really the challenge I think we all have in the management profession and as volunteers serving on boards, is we rarely deal with life and death issues. And this has become, for us, a life and death issue. I don't want to end on a low note because this is what we're dealing with. But I also will tell you, if you look around the U.S., if you look around other countries, and I've had conversations with Pepe and Jeevan and Johan and folks from the UK and Australia and all over the world, this is also the as Winston Churchill said, the opportunity may turn out to be our finest hour. We have great people in our communities. We have great people managing those communities. They're doing a fantastic job. They're doing a job that is benefiting millions, and we need to thank them for that and give them all the support and resources that we possibly can. I really appreciate the chance to have time to talk to you today. I hope the next time we talk it's in person and not virtually like this, and we can all share a glass of wine and tell stories to each other about how we survived coronavirus in 2020. I wish you all well, be safe, and I wish your families well, and hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you very much.